Welcome to the Search Bar, where we're discussing how AI platforms are fueling website traffic in 2025. So for decades, search engines like Google have been the main source of traffic for websites, and that's still the case, but we're starting to see some trends that might tell a different story. And one of those things is just all the AI platforms out there like ChatGPT. So Melissa is with me today, and we're going to talk a little bit about this, and I wanted to share some stats that we found at Blue Compass. So we're website developers, digital marketers, so we are able to monitor hundreds and hundreds of websites. And we looked at just a small handful, and these are some of the stats that we came up with, which I thought was kind of interesting. So basically, these are sessions from AI platforms on websites the last 6 months versus the previous 6 months. So in other words, 6 months before that. 360% more active users just in the last 6 months than the previous month on these websites. So that's a huge increase in traffic from AI platforms. 360%, that's crazy. So active users are users who engage with a website over the course of about a day here. That's a huge increase. That's really, really wild. Now, it wasn't a huge amount before, and now it pales in comparison still to traffic from search engines like Google, but still that's a big increase. So 380% more engaged sessions. An engaged session is a session with meaningful interactions, and you can define what those are, but in this case, it's someone who's converted, they've spent at least 10 seconds or more on 2 pages or more. So it's those qualifications. So 380% increase, which is also crazy. 0.85 total sessions in the last 6 months that come from AI platforms like ChatGPT. And that sounds like a really small percentage. From search, it's like 70%. It's a huge, huge difference. So 0.85 does not sound very big, but that is absolutely more than the previous 6 months, which was 0.16%. So we're just seeing some really steady growth here. Additionally, the AI platform that sends the most traffic is ChatGPT, unsurprisingly. And then the second most traffic comes from Gemini, and the third is Perplexity. Although Gemini and Perplexity are super close together, really close. So this shows a trend that traffic from AI platforms is clearly increasing and being meaningful. We were looking at a couple of our clients too, and website traffic that comes from AI platforms seems to behave well. In other words, is more likely to convert than other sources of traffic. So, for years, we've seen this in organic search, like Google. For years, the best traffic comes from Google organic search. Why? Because someone has a query and they want to satisfy a question that they have. If your brand can be the answer to that question, that's really, really powerful. And so someone who finds your website as the answer to their query is much more likely to convert on your site, to fill out that form or buy that product, whatever that might be. Much more likely than if they come from social media, than if they come from direct traffic, etc. What we're seeing right now is traffic from AI platforms behaves pretty similar to organic search. In other words, it's a fairly high quality source of traffic as compared to, again, something like ads or social media or something like that. So that's a good sign, at least.
Yeah, it's still organic search. That's typically if the traffic is actually coming to your website from an AI platform. It's probably because they didn't put a prompt into the AI platform where they were looking for it to give, like, write me an essay or write me, or give me code. They were actually probably searching. So the behavior was the same. It's just the platform is different.
And they had a query of some sort. They're like, tell me about this. And it gave them an answer. And then they clicked on a link. Yeah.
And honestly, it wouldn't surprise me that organic generative AI platform traffic would even perform a little bit better than organic search traditionally, simply because if you've already gotten an answer, because the AI engine is typically already going to give you an answer, if you're going to do a click after that answer, it means you're really invested. Whereas organic Google you kind of had to dig a little to get to that answer. Like you had to click on the link that was there and then go to that article or that web page and then read a little bit more to get that answer and then decide to convert. So you actually already have an upfront conversion mentality and behavior happening in the AI platform so that when they get to your site, it takes less time for them to decide to actually convert.
That's a super interesting point there, and I hadn't quite thought of it that way. But yeah, you could say maybe potentially they would be even more likely to convert. Yeah, because in a way they already got what they're looking for. They got an answer in ChatGPT, but they're like, wow, I want to dive deeper, or I want to know more about the source of this. And so they're really invested if they click.
Yeah, and I think that's something, as much as a lot of clients and brands and websites are very fearful of their traffic being taken away. Now, granted, there are certainly certain industries that rely on traffic as their source of income. But if you're more of a conversion, e-com or B2B, where you're trying to get a lead or something of that sort, you shouldn't be as afraid of your traffic being taken away from you because the user is actually getting an answer faster. So as long as you are pretty sure that your brand is represented within that answer, you're actually going to get a much more intentional buyer or much more intentional consumer once they land on your website.
Yes, thus potentially higher quality traffic, like you're saying. Yeah. That's a great point. That's a really great point. And one thing too, so we just did a video on Google's AI mode, which really kind of imitates Perplexity in a way. But I've been kind of happy with how that works because when you use Google's AI mode, and we'll put a link in the description if you want to check that out. But when you use Google's AI mode, not only does it give you kind of the ChatGPT experience where it puts an answer up on the right-hand side, but it has really large links with that open graph image from the website. So you see an image, boxes. I like how big the sources are.
The citations, yeah.
Those are great, yeah, which is nice. Whereas when you search on ChatGPT, they're smaller. When you search on something like Gemini, sometimes they're even non-existent. So I think it's doing a good job of that at least. So that's personally, as a marketer, one of the things that I want is, okay, if we're going to live in this world where we have these AI, generative platforms that are creating content where, OpenAI and Google and all these different platforms are using our website content as their database.
Yeah, the brain of their agent.
That they didn't create, but we created. At least instead of just giving an answer, citations, cite the source.
Yeah.
Have really clear, evident links and don't 100% discourage traffic to these websites too.
Yeah, I agree. And I'd say it's not even because of being a marketer that I enjoy that approach, but more of just like a really nice, good human being because, you don't want to be taking credit for work that wasn't yours. I mean, we all grew up within elementary, school where it was like, this is how you reference who you're getting this information or this idea from.
Yeah.
And that definitely has to be more clear throughout the web while we're using AI agents. Because otherwise it can seem like all of this great, vast information or answers is coming from whatever AI you're using when really it's not. It was off of the backs, we'll just say, of work of a lot of other people.
Yeah, definitely. So hopefully that continues and those sources are very evident and everything in all these different platforms. We'd love to see that. Trying to think what this. I guess I'll ask you the question I was going to ask you. But so, for you and, your agency and everything, are you talking to clients about, thinking about traffic from these different AI platforms? Is this something that you're focused on too?
Yeah, I would say it's something that we're definitely talking to clients about. At Digitas, we're looking at all of the different forms of traffic. And it's not something that we're putting all of our weight and say, like, you have to be thinking only 100% about AI generated traffic because the volume's just not there yet. Even Perplexity knows that their volume isn't there yet. And so they offer, different types of deals. Like with the publisher, they have a publisher approach to their deals and how they're looking to monetize that traffic. But But we are saying you need to at least acknowledge that this is happening, and we want you to start testing and playing with it now, because there are users who are going towards that, and it's happening a lot faster than any other changeover to any other platform before its time frame.
Mhm.
So, if you want to be the answer when all of the mass population goes more frequently to the AI generated engines, you need to start understanding how it works now and how to get, what I'm going to say, a lot of your mentions, have your brand, or your products mentioned more often throughout the entire web, so that when AI does pull in those answers, you're allowed, not allowed, but you're actually shown there within those results.
Yeah.
So that's where we're playing with it, is not saying like we're going to deviate and we're going to change all of our strategy and everything that we had already planned out to, do a fast move to this. No, but we definitely want to at least start taking some of that time that we would have been dedicated like 100% towards Google organic search, and now we need to start moving it over to some of these other platforms. Same thing with social search, because there are also uses of traffic coming from there to websites, but also what happens inside social search actually has a way of affecting AI generated answers.
Yeah. And I think that's such a great lesson, for you, if you're watching, if you have a website. It's not like you have to put all your eggs in one basket. It's not like you have to focus entirely on ChatGPT or anything like that. But it is a great idea to start shifting your mentality a little bit more towards these AI platforms and thinking about them, doing things like mentions, which we need to do an episode on that, but getting more mentions for your brand throughout the web, getting, creating content that's super relevant to your audience, making sure it's well written, structuring the content well. We have a whole video also on how to optimize your website for AI platforms. We'll put that in the description too. But thinking about this stuff is really important because, yeah, like I said, right now, it was 0.85 total sessions that we're seeing our websites get, from AI platforms. That's pretty small, but it's growing.
Yeah,
it's growing fast.
I've heard different types of industries, right? And if you think about it, the types of people who are going to be kind of the first users or first consumers of AI, like if you're in a tech industry, you should certainly be thinking about quite a bit more of your efforts going into AI, because that's where a lot of those tech people are going out and playing with that. So if you are in B2B in tech sales, you certainly want to make sure that your company and your brand or your products are represented there in those answers. I know that actually e-commerce, there's a little bit of e-commerce that's type of searches that are happening within AI generated engines as well. So that's another type of industry that might want to look there. So you just need to figure out like who is your audience, and is that the same audience that is dipping their toes into this more up and coming type of search, which is the AI search.
Mhm.
That's where you want to focus first. But certainly it's going to come faster than we all know, where you're going to have a lot more people using AI more frequently, and that day might come in a flash, and so you want to be prepared for it now.
Yeah, so you got to think about it and jump into your analytics, whether it's Google Analytics, whatever it might be, and look at the sources of traffic and try to determine, okay, what percentage of my traffic is coming from a platform like ChatGPT? How big is that? And keep an eye on it and watch, how much that is increasing, and continue to think about it. But if it really starts to increase, then you need to especially put more of your efforts there.
Yeah, I would say even first, before we forget about this, let's go back to, if you don't know, you need to check with whoever sets up the analytics within your teams to make sure that those AI engines, all these little ones even that are popping up, are actually set as a refer within the analytics platform.
Yep.
Because if not, it's going to go into direct traffic. So if you see your direct traffic kind of increasing and you haven't really been putting any sort of, branded marketing efforts together, you might want to question that and say like, wait,
Yeah.
is everything actually dumping into the right channel within my analytics? So that's the first thing I do want to mention, because there have been some sites that I've looked at where they didn't have that accounted for yet. And so it made their direct traffic look really, really large. And now that's all corrected. Then second, I would say if you're then seeing conversions, rather than just watching the traffic itself, you want to watch at the quality of traffic that's coming back from it. So if they're getting answers and just coming to your site and getting some more information from that, yeah, that's something great to watch for. But if you're seeing you've got a lot of sales, you've got a lot of leads, you've got a lot of just conversions, whatever format those are for you and your site, then definitely you would want to start to shift over a little bit more time and dedication towards the generated AI platforms.
That is a great point. Absolutely. And so one of our clients in the service industry we were looking at got 78 visits, 78 sessions in a month or so from AI platforms. And out of those 78, got 4 conversions, which is really solid for this type of client in this type of industry. So it worked out really well. But yes, tracking like how high quality is that traffic? In this case, it's pretty high quality for this client that we have. Like 4 is really solid for them.
Yeah, because
so to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, like look at those metrics in like percentage growth to each other, not just blatant numbers. Because 78 sessions of traffic might seem really low, but for really solid conversions,
nothing to sneeze at,
is going to be really big. Because in the service industry that you're talking about, compared to like you might get 17,000, from Google organic, and then only have 15 conversions. That's a really big difference.
Yes, it is absolutely. Yep. And I also like what you're bringing up in regards to analytics. And this is something we do, like at Blue Compass, when we start working with a new client, we'll always review their analytics and ensure everything is set up properly and ensure there's not a ton of bot traffic and ensure, we're excluding certain regions that don't need to be, or whatever that might be, cleaning up their analytics. And it can be difficult. So it might be handy to engage with a marketing agency or someone who knows their stuff and can clean these analytics up.
Yeah,
so it's you can understand.
It's a tech and data cleanup project. It's not like any random person can go out and do that. I can't do that.
No, it's very complicated. And so we have, pros here that actually do that. And I can't do it either.
Yeah.
It's super complicated. Yeah. Well, we hope that was useful for you. Keep an eye on that traffic coming from AI platforms. And if you're ever looking for someone for one of your sessions at a conference or a speaking event, both Melissa and I certainly do those, sometimes together, sometimes separately, but we love talking about these type of topics, marketing, SEO, etc. Don't hesitate to reach out to us. Also, subscribe. It really helps out our channel. Thanks, and we'll talk to you next time.